Ever feel like college courses are a bit of a one-size-fits-all approach
Yeah.
and sometimes miss the mark?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Stanford University Center for Teaching and Learning is tackling that head-on with a program designed to make learning more equitable and effective.
It's a really ambitious undertaking, for sure.
You shared some notes from a recent coach community discussion hosted by Stanford CTL,
I did.
and I have to say, it's
Yeah.
impressive stuff. So let's dive into how they're applying the principles of SMART goals and thoughtful assessment to drive meaningful curriculum change.
Sounds good.
Okay, first things first, what exactly is this Leveling the Learning Landscape project at Stanford?
So it's a 5-year initiative
Okay.
with the ambitious goal of making the undergraduate experience more inclusive and supportive for all students. A core component is their Curriculum Transformation Institute,
I see.
which provides a supportive space for departmental teams to identify equity challenges in their curriculums,
Okay.
set goals for improvement, and develop effective strategies to achieve them.
So it's about giving them the tools to actually make those changes happen.
Right.
I like that. But something that really stood out to me in your notes was the use of SMART goals.
Mm-hmm.
We usually hear about those in a business context.
Right. Yeah. But Stanford CTL is applying them to curriculum transformation, both at the program level and for individual student learning goals.
Interesting.
It's fascinating to see how a framework from the business world can be so effectively adapted to academia.
Now, I'm all for catchy acronyms, but remind me, what does SMART stand for again?
Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound.
Ah, yes.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense in the business world.
Right.
But how does that translate to, say, a history class or a biology lab?
So instead of a vague statement like students will understand the causes of the Civil War,
Okay.
a SMART goal might be, by week 4, 80% of students will be able to identify and explain 3 key causes of the Civil War using evidence from primary sources.
Wow.
That level of detail takes the guesswork out of both teaching and learning. Yeah.
Both instructors and students know exactly what they're working towards.
That's such a good point. I can see how that would be incredibly helpful for students,
Yeah.
especially those who might feel lost or unsure of what's expected of them.
Exactly. And it's not just about clarity for the students. It also provides a framework for instructors to design their courses and assessments in a way that supports those very specific learning goals.
So it's not just about setting ambitious goals, it's about setting the right kind of goals, the kind that can actually be measured and achieved.
Precisely. And that's where the measurable aspect of SMART goals comes in. It forces you to think about how you'll track progress and determine whether those goals are actually being met.
Okay, that makes total sense. But let's get back to the equity piece of this.
Okay.
How are they ensuring that these SMART goals are actually promoting equity in the classroom?
That's where things get really interesting. Stanford CTL emphasizes that simply setting SMART goals isn't enough.
You have to make sure those goals are aligned with the specific needs and challenges of the students you're serving.
So a SMART goal that works for one group of students might not be as effective for another.
Exactly. That's why they encourage faculty to involve students in the goal-setting process whenever possible.
Yeah.
Gathering student feedback both formally and informally helps ensure that those goals are relevant and attainable for the specific student population in each course.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's not just about imposing goals on students.
Right.
It's about collaborating with them to create a learning environment that works for everyone.
It's about empowering students to be active participants in shaping their own education.
And I imagine that sense of ownership can make a huge difference in their motivation and engagement.
Absolutely. When students feel like their voices are heard and their needs are being considered, they're much more likely to invest in the learning process.
So they're not just passive recipients of knowledge.
Right.
They're active collaborators in their own learning.
Exactly. And that's a key principle of equity-focused curriculum design.
Yeah.
It's about creating a learning environment where all students feel valued, supported, and empowered to succeed.
This is also fascinating. Okay, we've talked about SMART goals
Right.
and how they can be used to promote equity in the classroom.
Yeah.
But what about assessment? How does that fit into this whole picture?
Assessment is a crucial part of this process.
Okay.
It's not just about grading students.
Right.
It's about gathering data to see if those SMART goals are actually being met. and if the curriculum is having its intended impact.
So it's about using assessment as a tool for continuous improvement,
Exactly.
not just a way to evaluate students.
Precisely. And Stanford CTL emphasizes a holistic approach to assessment, looking beyond traditional exams and papers.
You mean like incorporating more creative and diverse assessment methods?
Exactly. Things like projects, presentations, portfolios,
Right.
even peer assessments. It's about giving students multiple ways to demonstrate their learning and allowing them to showcase their strengths and talents.
I love that.
Yeah.
Is recognizing that different learners excel in different ways.
And it's about making assessment more transparent and student-centered.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Tell me more about what that looks like in practice.
Well, for starters, it means being very clear with students about the learning goals for the course and explaining the rationale behind different assessment methods.
Okay.
It's also about providing specific and actionable feedback, not just a letter grade or a percentage.
So it's less about judging or ranking students and more about helping them understand where they are in their learning journey.
Right.
And what they need to do to improve.
Exactly. It's about shifting the focus from evaluation to growth and development.
That's a powerful shift in perspective. And I imagine it can make a big difference in how students view assessment.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing it as a threat,
Right.
they can see it as an opportunity to learn and grow.
Exactly. And that's especially important for students from underrepresented backgrounds who might have had negative experiences with traditional assessment methods.
This is all so insightful.
Yeah.
But I have to ask,
Sure.
how do they actually assess something as complex as equity-focused learning? I mean, it's not like you can just give students a multiple-choice quiz on inclusivity.
Right. It's definitely more nuanced than that.
Yeah.
One of the key strategies Stanford CTL recommends is focusing on assessing competencies. Those broader skills and abilities that students need to thrive in a diverse and complex world.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like in a real classroom setting?
Let's take the Center for Comparative Studies in Race and Ethnicity, or CCSRE.
Okay.
One of their core goals is building competency in key concepts related to race and ethnicity,
Makes sense.
but they also want to foster a strong sense of belonging among both students and instructors.
That makes sense. It's not just about understanding the concepts, it's about being able to apply that knowledge in a way that promotes equity and inclusion.
Exactly. So in addition to traditional exams and papers, CCSRE incorporates reflective essays and class discussions into their assessments.
Interesting.
These methods allow students to explore their own personal experiences and biases,
Okay.
engage in respectful dialogue with classmates from diverse backgrounds, and develop their capacity for empathy and understanding.
So they're not just learning about concepts, they're actively developing those crucial interpersonal skills that are essential for navigating a diverse and complex world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the instructors are right there with them, modeling those same skills and creating a space where vulnerability and respectful disagreement are encouraged.
It sounds like they're really trying to create a learning environment where students feel comfortable taking risks, asking difficult questions, and challenging their own assumptions.
Exactly. And that's where the real learning happens.
This is all so impressive. But I can't help but wonder, are there any concerns that this approach might compromise academic rigor?
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people worry that focusing on student belonging and incorporating less traditional assessments might somehow lower standards.
It's a valid concern, and one that Stanford CTL addresses head-on.
Okay.
They emphasize that equity-focused assessment is not about lowering the bar.
I see.
It's about ensuring that all students have the opportunity to demonstrate their learning in a way that's authentic and meaningful for them.
So it's about challenging those long-held assumptions about what academic rigor looks like.
Right.
And finding new ways to ensure that all students have the opportunity to excel.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that true rigor goes beyond just content mastery. It's about developing those critical thinking skills, that ability to analyze complex issues, to collaborate electively, and to communicate ideas persuasively. Those are the skills that will truly prepare students to be successful in our rapidly changing world.
And those are the skills that equity-focused curriculum and assessment are designed to cultivate. This has been such a rich and insightful conversation so far.
It has.
But there's one more piece of this puzzle I want to explore.
Okay.
The challenges of aligning curriculum changes with broader learning outcomes, assessments. It's one thing to set SMART goals for individual courses.
Yeah.
But how do you make sure those changes add up to meaningful progress across an entire program?
that's where things can get tricky. It requires a careful balancing act.
I see.
Departments have to reconcile the specific skills and knowledge they want to impart within their courses with the broader competencies that students need to develop over their entire academic journey.
So it's about connecting those micro-level learning goals to the macro-level outcomes.
Precisely.
Right.
And it's not just about content.
Yeah.
It's about fostering those higher-order thinking skills, critical analysis, problem-solving, effective communication.
The kind of skills that will serve students well no matter what field they go into.
Absolutely. But assessing those competencies within an equity-focused framework presents unique challenges.
Yeah.
Traditional assessments often favor certain learning styles or cultural backgrounds.
So you might unintentionally create barriers for students who excel in different ways.
Exactly. And that's where careful assessment design becomes crucial.
Yeah.
You need to create assessments that accurately measure skills and knowledge,
Yeah.
while also considering the diverse experiences and perspectives students bring to the table.
Sounds like a tall order.
It definitely can be.
So how are they helping faculty navigate this complexity?
Stanford CTL provides a lot of support and guidance.
Okay.
They emphasize incorporating multiple forms of assessment, moving beyond the standard multiple choice exams to things like projects, presentations, portfolios, even peer assessments.
Wow.
The key is to offer students a variety of ways to demonstrate their learning, allowing them to showcase their strengths and talents.
That makes so much sense.
Yep.
It creates a more inclusive learning environment where different types of learners can thrive.
Right.
This has been incredibly enlightening so far. But before we go any further, let's take a moment to digest all this amazing information.
Sounds like a good plan.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've been talking about how Stanford CTL is helping faculty align their curriculum with broader learning outcomes. But it sounds like there's a real art to designing assessments
Oh, yeah.
that are both rigorous and equitable.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance. You
Yeah.
want to ensure you're accurately measuring student learning while also creating a level playing field for students from diverse backgrounds.
Can you give me an example of how they're guiding faculty in this process? What are some specific techniques they're recommending?
One strategy they emphasize is something called backward design.
Okay.
It's all about starting with the end in mind.
Okay, I've heard that term before.
Right.
But refresh my memory. What does it entail exactly?
Instead of starting with the content you want to cover, you begin by identifying the specific learning outcomes you want students to achieve. By the end of this course, what do I want my students to be able to do? What knowledge, skills, and competencies do they need to develop?
So it's about flipping the traditional approach on its head.
Exactly. You're not just focusing on what you're going to teach,
Yeah.
but rather on what you want students to walk away with.
I can see how that would shift your thinking as an instructor. It's about outcomes, not just inputs.
Right. And once you have those clear learning outcomes in mind,
Yeah.
you can then design assessments that directly measure those skills and knowledge.
So the assessments become a natural extension of the learning goals, not just an afterthought.
Precisely. And this approach helps ensure that you're assessing what truly matters, those core competencies that students need to succeed in the course and beyond.
This makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how backward design naturally aligns with an equity-focused approach.
It does. When you prioritize those learning outcomes,
Right.
you're less likely to rely on assessments that might unintentionally advantage certain groups of students.
Because you're forced to think critically about whether your assessment methods are truly aligned with what you want students to learn and whether they're providing a level playing field for everyone.
Exactly. And it encourages you to be more creative and intentional in your assessment design.
Okay.
What are the different ways students can demonstrate their understanding of these concepts?
Yeah.
What formats will allow them to showcase their unique strengths and talents?
So it opens up the possibility for more diverse and engaging assessment methods.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's where Stanford CTL is encouraging faculty to think outside the box.
Yeah.
They're suggesting everything from case studies and simulations to multimedia projects and community-based learning experiences.
Wow, that's a far cry from the traditional exam-heavy approach.
It is. It's about recognizing that different learners have different strengths and preferences.
Right.
What might be an engaging and effective assessment for one student might feel like an insurmountable barrier for another.
So it's about providing choice and flexibility within the assessment process.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that true assessment goes beyond just measuring individual performance. It's about providing students with opportunities to apply their knowledge, to collaborate with others,
Right.
and to solve real-world problems.
And those are the experiences that will truly prepare them for success in life, no matter what path they choose.
Exactly.
It's inspiring to see Stanford CTL embracing this more holistic and equitable approach to assessment.
It really is. They're pushing the boundaries of what assessment can be
Yeah.
and demonstrating how it can be used to empower students and create a more inclusive learning environment.
This has been so insightful. It has. But I have to ask, with all this talk about innovation and change, are there any challenges or pushback they've encountered along the way?
Of course, change is never easy, especially in a large institution like Stanford.
Right.
One of the biggest challenges they've faced is navigating the sometimes rigid structures of academia.
You mean bureaucracy and resistance to change?
Exactly. Changing a curriculum isn't as simple as just tweaking a few syllabi.
Okay.
It often involves navigating complex approval processes, securing funding, and addressing concerns from various stakeholders.
That sounds like it could get pretty complicated.
It can. It takes a lot of patience, persistence,
Oh, for sure.
and diplomacy on the part of the faculty and staff involved.
So how are they supporting those faculty members who are trying to make these changes? It sounds like they could easily get bogged down in red tape and discouragement.
Stanford CTL is very aware of that.
Okay.
One strategy they use is connecting teams with individuals in key administrative roles who can help them navigate those approval processes and advocate for the changes they're trying to make.
So it's about building those relationships and alliances within the institution.
Exactly. It's recognizing that meaningful change requires buy-in and support from multiple levels within the organization.
It's not just about individual faculty members championing these ideas. It's about creating a system-wide shift in how we think about teaching and learning.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's where Stanford CTL's emphasis on building a community of practice comes in.
That sounds really interesting. Tell me more about this community of practice. What is it exactly?
It's about creating a space where faculty and staff who are passionate about equity-focused curriculum transformation can connect with one another, share resources, and offer mutual support.
It's like a support group for educational innovators.
Exactly. It's a place where they can brainstorm ideas, troubleshoot challenges, celebrate successes, and encourage each other to keep pushing forward.
That makes so much sense. It's easy to feel isolated when you're trying to implement change.
It is.
Especially when you're challenging long-held beliefs and practices.
Sure.
Having that network of like-minded individuals can make all the difference.
It really can.
Yeah.
It provides a sense of solidarity and reminds faculty that they're not alone in this work.
It sounds like Stanford CTL is really fostering a sense of collective ownership over this work.
They are, and that's essential for sustaining these efforts over time.
Right.
Creating lasting change isn't about isolated pockets of innovation.
Yeah.
It's about embedding these equity-focused principles into the very fabric of the institution.
It's about making this way of thinking about teaching and learning the norm,
Right.
not the exception.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that this work is ongoing, a continuous journey of reflection, improvement, and adaptation.
It's about creating a culture of continuous learning, not just for students, but for the institution as a whole.
Exactly. And that's something that we can all strive for no matter what role we play within the educational landscape.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation.
It really has.
I'm truly impressed by the depth and breadth of Stanford CTL's approach.
Me too. It's a powerful reminder that equity-focused curriculum transformation is not just about changing courses. It's about transforming the very culture of teaching and learning.
And that requires a multifaceted approach.
Yes.
One that encompasses SMART goals, holistic assessment,
Right.
faculty development,
Yeah.
institutional support, and a deep commitment to building a more inclusive and equitable learning environment for all students.
Well said. And I think one of the key takeaways from all of this is that it's not about achieving perfection overnight.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the journey and celebrating those small wins along the way.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
Sometimes the enormity of the task can feel overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
But if we focus on making progress one step at a time, we can create meaningful and lasting change.
Exactly. It's about celebrating those small movements forward and recognizing that even incremental progress is still progress.
And I think that's a message that resonates far beyond the walls of Stanford.
Absolutely.
That's something that we can all apply to our own lives and work.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we're all on a learning journey and that progress, not perfection, is the ultimate goal.
Well said. I feel like we've covered so much ground today, and I'm eager to hear your final thoughts on what all of this means for the future of education.
Oh.
But before we get there,
Yeah.
let's take a quick moment to gather our thoughts.
That's good.
We're back, and I'm still buzzing from all the incredible insights we've gleaned about Stanford CTL's approach to equity-focused curriculum transformation.
Yeah. It's truly remarkable work, isn't it? They've managed to create a framework that's both ambitious and practical.
And they're not shying away from the challenges.
Right.
They acknowledge that this is long-term work that requires a shift in mindset and culture.
What I find particularly inspiring is their emphasis on celebrating those small movements forward.
Yeah.
It's a recognition that meaningful change doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's a process.
Right. It's about acknowledging those incremental steps, those moments where you see a flicker of progress, even if it's not a complete transformation.
Exactly. It's about shifting the focus from perfection to continuous improvement.
Instead of getting bogged down by the enormity of the task, they're encouraging faculty to find joy in those small wins, those moments where they see a positive impact on their students.
And that can be incredibly motivating. It helps sustain momentum and prevents people from feeling overwhelmed or discouraged.
It's like they're saying, hey, it's okay to stumble as long as you keep moving forward.
Exactly. And that's a message that resonates far beyond the realm of education.
Right.
It's something we can all apply to our own lives and work.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Stanford CTL's approach, what's the one key takeaway you hope our listener will walk away with today?
For me, the most important message is this equity-focused curriculum transformation is not just an initiative.
Okay.
It's a mindset. It's a way of thinking about teaching and learning that centers the needs and experiences of all L students.
It's about recognizing that diversity is a strength, not a deficit.
Yeah.
And that creating a truly inclusive learning environment requires ongoing reflection, adaptation, and a willingness to challenge long-held assumptions.
Exactly. And it's not just the responsibility of a few dedicated individuals.
Right.
It's something that we all have a role to play in, no matter what our position within the educational landscape.
We can all be advocates for a more just and equitable learning experience for everyone. And that's a powerful thought to carry with us as we navigate our own educational journeys, whether we're students, instructors, or simply lifelong learners.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Indeed. So until next time, keep diving, keep exploring, and keep pushing for a more equitable and inclusive world.